Welcome to the Undrafted Hockey Fan Podcast. I'm Brad, and we're brought to you by the Hockey Podcast Network. And today we're going over the Boston Bruins and some of their moves that they made last year, some of the moves at the trade deadline that affected them last year, as well as at the end of the season they actually implemented. They are still part of their team, as well as some of the people they lost and people they signed. And the huge one, the Swayman contract, which we will definitely be getting into because it is a huge deal and it's going to make really it's what makes this roster, to be honest. So we're going to be jumping right into that. So let's do a quick review. We're going to go over a couple of things. We're going to go again transactions. We're going to go over the summary of what happened last season and the postseason, going some trades, and then kind of again going over the Swayman and then the roster breakdown. So we're going to be doing all that today. So make sure you stick around. And if you like this content, you want to see more, or you want to see of your favorite team, if it's not the Boston Bruins, let me know. Like I said, we're planning on doing all 32. I've already done Dallas, San Jose, Toronto, Red Wings. So I want to do all the original six and start just breaking out from there and seeing what they have. And so now they're going on to this original six team, the Boston Bruins. So hopefully Boston Bruins fans, you're here for a ride. And if you got any comments and say, man, this guy's an idiot, you're absolutely right. We're gonna go going through this together. And again, I went through some of this and I'm excited. And I would love to hear your opinion. So make sure you leave a comment. You can leave an emoji. It helps out small creators like me. Put your favorite emoji. Be a chicken is my favorite right now. Put whatever you want. Like I said, I don't really care. It helps the engagement, and like I said, it helps me feel that people are watching this. So and I'll keep doing it. Actually, you know what? Be honest, I'll keep doing it anyways. But the interactions help. So moving on to their record. Okay, so going on to what happened last year, Bruins. They finished 47, 20, and 15 at the end of the season. They finished second in the Atlantic Division, only behind Florida. As Florida, Boston, Toronto, then Tampa. Again, versus the Toronto Maple Leafs in the first round, beating them in the first round 4-3. That was awesome. I'm very happy for them, but unfortunately, that is not where they actually ended up. They kind of struggled through it, by the way. Again, winning the first game, Toronto won the second game. Boston's third game. Fourth game, they went, oh my God, it's 3-1. Oh my God, can Boston close it? They cannot. Toronto wins again, and then finally in Game 7, Boston finally wins. So if we go into the next round, though, they did in the second round, they versed the Florida Panthers. Now they had a bit easier, I would say easier time, against Florida Panthers. Mind you, the Florida Panthers, of course, the eventual Stanley Cup winners. And by the way, is it better to win against the Stanley Cup champions? Like, I'm trying to figure out if it is or not, because to me, it's like, it just shows that you're good still. Like you're good enough, but not so good that you're winning. So I don't know if it's a good thing or not. So let me know what your thoughts are on that as well. But again, Boston versus the Florida Panthers. Boston wins cleanly game 1. That was phenomenal, by the way. Florida winning cleanly game 2, though. I mean, it's crazy that these first 3 games were just such blowouts too, because you have like a 6. I mean, by the way, this is also in Florida. So Boston wins the first game. You're like, oh my God, they're going. They won it. They won on a road game. Then Florida wins. They ties it up to 1-1, which is great. Good for them. Then you have Florida again now in Boston's barn winning 6-2. You're like, oh crap, dude, this is tough. And then Florida wins again game 3, 3-2, a lot closer game though, which is great. And then Boston again on the road, 2-1 in Florida. And then back in Boston, Florida takes it 2-1, which is tough for Boston fans. But again, they fought well. I mean, to me, I had them coming in the 4th seed in the Atlantic Division. They surprised me for sure. I thought they were going to barely make it in. I thought Tampa was a little bit better. Clearly they weren't. And I honestly, like every Toronto fan, they think, oh, they're going to be better. They're going to do well. They're going to finish well. 3rd in the division, which is good. I mean, mind you, Toronto only finished like I think a couple points behind Boston, so it was a good play. But either way, they had a great regular season, surprising as well. But they're still holding on to it. Honestly, it's honestly amazing they're still holding on to it. So I'm going into some of the signings. So actually, I want to go over the trades first of what happened last year, and some of these actually impact what's happening moving forward with their team now actually as well. So at the trade deadline, they traded for Patrick Maroon and sending out Luke Toporowski and a 6th-round pick. So no big deal. He came and went. He became more of like a bruiser, nothing of huge consequences. One thing I did like though is they picked up Andrew Peeke, sending out a 3rd-round pick, and Jacob Zaboral. And Jacob Zaboral was one of their 1st-round picks that they had in the DeBrusque. I think it was 3 first-round draft picks in a row. It was like 14th, 15th, 16th. And this is one of their misses, unfortunately. And again, all three of those guys I think are gone now, actually, because Jake DeBrusk is now signed with the the Vancouver Canucks, which is a huge loss for them, mind you. So that is one of consequence that they're gonna miss, in my opinion. But again, when you're looking at what Jake DeBrusk signed, I think it was like 7x7. It was some very big contract with Vancouver. I think Boston looks at that and they say, man, we wouldn't have signed that. And they did pick up a great center, which we'll be talking about later, from Vancouver, by the way. So they're not too mad about it. Now, one thing it's nice about Andrew Peeke is he also he's only, I think it's in the second year of this contract as well. So hopefully they can get a good bottom pair defenseman out of him. Again, making, I think it's like $2.75 million. So good for them. I need the big trade, the huge, massive trade. Allmark was either going to be Allmark or Swayman on the block, and of course it was Allmark. The Boston Bruins trade out Linus Allmark, the tandem goalie for Allmark and Swayman. Honestly, the best tandem goalie setup for the last couple of years. For Jonas Korpisalo, which was not a good contract. It wasn't a good contract to start off with. Senators did. Then they get prospect. I think he's like 25, Mark Kastelik. He's not super young, but he's 25. Yeah, he's 25. Right-handed. The thing is, they like about him, 6'4", 209. That is why you pick up a guy like this. And we're gonna be going over those depth players soon. So, but he's a roster player for them. Jonas Korpisalo as well. Plus, you get a first-round pick. I mean, that's pretty nice. So which they end up using. Also, they moved out Jacob Lauko as for Vinny Lettieri, and they just pretty much swapped fourth-round picks. So they get another player just to get to see what happens there. So, and the nice thing is that Vinny Lettieri is going to be on the roster. You're going to have Jonas Korpisalo on the roster, Mark Kastelik, Andrew Peeke, right? So you're moving out guys like Jacob Zaboral down here with the Columbus Blue Jackets trade. That was a trade that he was in the AHL anyways, so now you get a roster player. And, all you do is send out a third-round pick, right? You sent out Linus Allmark, who arguably, you knew that you were going to have to pay Swayman, which, by the way, we're going to later. And I'm going to show you where it comes to. By the way, I break down a couple of the goalies and what I think he realistically should sign for if he's looking to sign a long-term 8-year contract. A bridge deal will be something different, but we're going to go with the long-term one in this case. But again, when you're trading out Linus Allmark, one of your better goalies, a previous Vezina winner, right? You do get a backup goalie plus a roster player here and a first-round pick. It's an okay. That's okay. Like you did okay for a guy who, by the way, he didn't sign. He still has only Linus Allmark still have 1 year left on his contract, and he has not signed with the Senators yet. And he might just test free agency. So if it was going to be a sign and trade, they would have got more. But again, it was without a contract. So that is the risk that Senators are taking. They did it with Alex DeBrincat. They did it with Jacob Chikrin. So hopefully it works out for them with Linus Allmark. By the way, that's funny. They did it with a forward. Senators did it with a forward, a defenseman, and now they're trying it with a goalie, and maybe it will stick. We'll see. And then again, you're trading Jacob Lauko, a roster player, for Vinny Lettieri, a roster player. So the goal is to stay competitive, which is what Boston's trying to do. So moving on. So we're going to hit up the the signings. And so actually a couple things I wanted to go over real quick is that they also actually signed a couple of people. Actually, we're going to go down. This is the reason I started here. So the reason we're down here still in February is there's two people that they signed that are actually on the team right now. And they signed them because they were both on AHL contracts. It was Justin Brazeau and Parker Wotherspoon. So these two guys were in the AHL at this time in March and February. February for Justin Brazeau, and then March 8th for Parker Wotherspoon. They ended up signing these guys from the AHL, and then so now they take up actual spots on the roster this time. So, and now they're going to be on the roster this upcoming year, which is huge. I mean, that's awesome that you have these guys, and they're at cheap contracts, right? Again, they're trying to stay competitive, right? They're trying to keep guys that are on good contracts for a long time at a reasonable price, which is why you got, Brad Marchand at like 6'3", and a couple of these other guys here as well. So anyways, most of these signings were AHLers, or they're just fill-in players. Ian Mitchell, Brandon Busey, goalie for the AHL, Jeffrey Veal, Billy Sweezy, Cole Kopeke, like Riley Tufte, like Jordan Osterley. I remember when he played with the Red Wings. That's a 2-year contract, by the way, so he might come up in the second year. Max Jones, who will be on the roster. He's a first round pick from the San Jose Sharks, or not San Jose Sharks, the Anaheim Ducks. And then two of the bigger ones. We'll just go through the other smaller ones. Regula, Mark McLaughlin, Michael Callahan. But the two big ones you have are Nikita Zadorov right here and Elias Lindholm. My goodness. All right, so this is the rule when it happens with that I've heard when it comes to free agents. Is Zadorov worth $5 million a year? Probably not. I don't think he even made that. I forget what he made up last year. So mind you, when you pick up a free agent, it's what I've heard, and this is what I've heard. You typically play one more year than you would. You play $1 million per year than you would. That's your medium sized guys, right? If you're picking up a free agent that's a bottom guy or a 13th forward, you're not going to pay $1 million over. Like Jordan Osterley, they paid league minimum. But a guy like Zadorov, who was wanted, who was traded at deadline, also Lindholm was also traded at deadline. These guys, you pay a little bit more, you pay a little bit longer, mind you. So that's the contract he has on right now. But his contract before this was $3.75 million for 2 years, right? So it was an upgrade at another 3.75 as well there. So like he's making a little bit more money. Would you pay? Mind you, this is the way I think about it. If you were going to try and sign Nikita Zadorov, would you sign him for $4 million a year for 5 years? Yeah, absolutely, right? But because there's competition and you're trying to sign this guy while other guys are also trying to sign him, right? Your boss is like, I got to give a little bit more. I got to entice him to come, right? Mind you, Boston is an original 6 team, so there's an enticement there as well. But you're going to pay a little bit more and you're going to pay a year longer. And that's just how it goes. So again, if you would have paid $4 million at 5 years, then you have to be if that's what you'd want Zadorov at, you have to be willing to pay him at $5 million for 6 years. That is a general rule, by the way. That's maybe it's a little $500,000 more a year, maybe it's up to $1 million, but like that's the idea of the rule, is that you pay a little bit more on AAV and term just to be able to get these players because you want them, right? Show them you're serious, right? And then similar with Elias Lindholm, a center, and we knew Boston was beginning to go for a center. Zadorov was a more surprising one. Going back to Zadorov, I think I wouldn't have paid as much. Zadorov is not old, but older for what do you want. And besides, you have a great decor, and this just solidifies it. By the way, he's a 6'6", 235 pounds, 29 years old. You're signing a guy for 6 years till he's 35. Do you necessarily want that? Probably not, but Boston will. I mean, maybe they'll go into a rebuild or a retool at that point, but we'll see. I mean, they've held it off this far, right? So, I mean, at this point, they could just keep doing it. So, and then you have Elias Lindholm, 7 years at $7.75 million. Again, probably more than you'd want to pay for a guy like Elias Lindholm, who honestly didn't have a great year. When he played with Calgary, he was okay. When he got to Vancouver, he wasn't really playing as well. He started to get his stride. You got to see here with Calgary, he did okay, 32 points in 49 games, right? And then you get 26 games, 12 points, a little under half a point per game. So his production actually dropped, and I don't even remember what he was traded for, but I wonder if it's listed here. I don't know if it's listed here on Puckpedia. That is one thing that I would love to see. Actually here. I think it'll show it in the listing. We're going down to the news. Oh, here we go. So you have Elias Lindholm traded in January for Andrei Kuzmenko, Hunter Brustevowitz, Yanni Yeromov, first round pick, and a 2024 fourth round pick. By the way, based on what what's his name? Not Elliot Friedman, Jeff Merrick, who now is no longer with 32 Thoughts. Jeff Merrick is very high on Hunter Brustevowicz. They say he is the Adam Fox of the CHL right now, the Canadian Hockey League. Andrei Kuzmenko, a roster player. Yanni Yermo, no idea who he is, but you also get a first round pick and a fourth round pick. I mean, this is a big trade. I think in my opinion, they Canucks had paid before we knew the production that the Canucks would get out of Elias Lindholm. To me, I thought it was an overpay in the first place. I think a top end prospect, a roster player, another guy, a first round pick. It just seemed like a lot for Elias Lindholm. And I guess I wouldn't have traded it. Similarly, I wouldn't have given Elias Lindholm 7.75 for 7 years. Again, if you would you give him for 6.5 for 6 years? That's more reasonable, right? But to me, Lindholm, I mean, I don't think his previous contracts weren't even that great. Might use a first round pick, so like that gives you something there. But like, even you look at his past year's performance, you look with the Calgary Flames, 64 points, 80 games, 82 points in 82 games, right? Like, so like he was a point per game at one point. I mean, even 18-19, he was really good, but again, not a great production. Even 22-23, it was fine. 64 points in 60 games. It's like 0.8 point per game, which is decent, right? But is it $8 million over, or almost $8 million over 7 years? Probably not, right? And so see, looking at his previous contract, 4.85. So he did need a pay raise, but again, this guy is 29 years old, so you guys are gonna have him until he's 36. Is he gonna be worth 7.75 million at the end of this contract? Probably not. So that's something that we'll either have to move on from, or maybe he is productive. Again, the Boston system is phenomenal. The culture is phenomenal. So there's a chance that he works out really well. And again, I wouldn't have paid for it. Again, I'm a Red Wings fan first and foremost, a San Jose fan as well as Dallas Stars fan. So looking at this, like, I wouldn't have signed Elias Lindholm for this. Mind you, the second line centers that Red Wings have are Andrew Kopp, who now is moving down to third line center because we have Comfer. I wouldn't have given Comfer this either. It's fine. Like I said, I wouldn't have paid for Elias Lindholm at this price at that age. But again, I recognize that Boston, they needed a center, so they paid for one of the best centers on the market. So they got their guy, which, hey, by the way, I'm happy you got your guy, and that's huge. So now moving on. Okay, so we did the Elias Lindholm. I think we're gonna be moving on to the Puck GM. Yeah. Okay, so we have the contract. We have the Puckpedia GM mode, and by the way, we're doing $8.6 million, which is going to be huge. And so again, we've gone over all the contracts. So I do want to do a quick ad break, and we will jump back in. By the way, we will be going over the Swayman contract and why I got to the number that I got you, because it is important. You can't just be like, oh my God, Swayman, he is now the number one guy. He deserves this amount of money for as long as you can get max term. Like, or you're like, oh, like he was a tandem goalie, he deserves $4 million. Like, you can't. You have to have a rationale, and I'm going to show you my rationale as well, and then break down the roster as it is, and seeing where they're going to go in with the season and see what happens, man. So we'll see. So we'll take a quick ad break, and let's just jump back into it, and give me about a couple minutes, and we'll jump back right into the roster and the Swayman contract. Got to talk to you guys about DraftKings. Okay, so the beautiful thing about being a sports fan is that there's only like 2 days the whole year without a game. 2, by the way. With so much happening, so much action, it just makes every day game day at DraftKings Sportsbook. It's super easy for first timers to get started. Try betting on something simple like picking a team to win. Go to DraftKings Sportsbook app, select your team, and place your first bet. It really couldn't be any easier, any more simple. Mind you, you have a couple props. You can do the spread, total over and under, and the money line. And by the way, we also have some football games happening. I watched the highlights of the Detroit Lions and the New York Giants. Love the inside fighting as well. And seeing, just because you might win a fight, Lions won that fight. Just because you win the fight doesn't mean you're going to win the game. And we definitely saw that against the Giants. But hey, it was a great little scrimmage, and I'm excited to continue to see football because it is starting. It is just starting, and it's so exciting. So if you're new to DraftKings, you got to check this out. New customers bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets instantly. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use the code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER, or in West Virginia, visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of the Boot Hill Casino and Resort. 21 plus, age varies by jurisdiction. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. Deposit and eligibility restrictions apply. See terms and responsible gaming resources at dkng.com/base. Then moving on to our next ad, we have BetterHelp. And BetterHelp, and this show is actually brought to you by BetterHelp. If you ever thought about like some of the things that with therapy is that like, therapy, in my opinion, is your brain getting worked out, right? If you go to the gym or you're playing hockey, maybe you're doing a league or something like that. Maybe you're seeing this football, maybe you play a pickup game, or maybe you're on a kickball team. Like you're doing those workouts, but really like what's happening with your brain? Are you doing workouts for your brain? And it helps. Therapy helps clear your mind out, right? I mean, if you got kids, their activities suddenly become more priority. Work projects become higher priority. So it's easy to let your own priorities, right, like therapy, slip. So even though we know things like those things like the projects or you playing with our kids and prioritizing their activities makes us happy, it makes it hard to just trying to fit in therapy. And so when you do that, when you're trying to figure out what your non-negotiables are, therapy should be one of them, because you need to prioritize your health, because if you're not good for you, you're not going to be good for anyone else, right? If things are messed up in your head, which for me they have been, I have done therapy. It's been great. I've worked through it. I've done it for maintenance purposes. I've done it for crisis issues, and helping talk through it and just feel like I'm just not crazy or feeling like I'm not alone is huge for me. So if you're thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online and designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch to therapists at any time for no additional charge. Never skip therapy day with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/THPN today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/THPN. And now, jump back to the show. And like I said, we are going to be going over the Boston Bruins roster. But the bigger thing we have to do, we have to figure this out. They're like, oh my God, we have $8.6 million in cap space. If you're a Boston Bruins fan, we have all this cap space. What can we do with it? Okay, well, maybe let's try signing Swayman. Okay, and so I want to show you what I did to break this down. So again, I'm scrolling down just to show you guys the RFAs. The only one we need to do is Jeremy Swayman here. Okay, so Jeremy Swayman last year played 44 games, 2.53 save percentage, goals against average, 0.916 save percentage. Okay, he made 3.475. Again, qualifying offer is the similar. I think that I don't know what contract he was on. It was a 1-year contract. Okay, so he is now he is arbitration eligible, but he skipped it, I believe. So what I did is I was like, okay, we need to figure out how to do this best. Okay, so I was like, okay, I went to Puckpedia and I listed the players. Okay, so I was like, okay, what players have played in the 23-24 season, 35 games or more. Okay, and then I also said I want a goaltender that's 23 to 32. Those are kind of when you sign prime goalies. 32 I would do that as a little higher just to give us a little bit more range. And I said I wanted guys with only a cap hit of 3.4 or higher. And that's the reason I did that is I wanted Swayman to be included in this. He made 3.475. So what happened is we ended up getting 17 goalies that are making 3.4 or higher on this current contract. And so when you look at some of them, a lot of these guys are Stanley Cup winners or Vezina winners, the ones that are really getting paid the best. I mean, you're looking at Vasilevsky making cap hit at 9.5. We're going to go off a cap hit. 9.5. He was paid for 8 years. Mind you, he's a Stanley Cup winner 2 times. Hellebuck, 8.5, 7 years, 2 times Stanley Cup or 2 times Vezina winner. Elias Sorokin, by the way, we're going over. I actually looked at the Vezinas. I was like, okay, let's look at the Vezinas, by the way. Hellebuck, Ullmark, Shesterkin, Fleury, Hellebuck, Vasilevsky, Rene, Bobrovsky, Holtby, Price. Now, as you're getting later, you're starting to lose some of these guys, right? But overall, you have to think with where are these guys ranking, right? And then I'm going to go over to what happened last year, right? Swayman was so good. He had played so well. He played tandem, mind you, not a number one goalie, but he's expected to be a number one goalie now. And if you think about this, who is he better than the 5 top goalies ranked for the Vezina this past year? Connor Hellebuck? I don't think he's better than Connor Hellebuck. Is he better than Thatcher Demko? Maybe. There's a potential that he could be Thatcher Demko had a phenomenal year, so he could be as good as him. Bobrovsky won Vezina as well. Almost, probably, honestly, could have won the Conn Smythe for how he played up until like the end when Bobrovsky started to lose it in the last games or two. Igor Shesterkin, again, Vezina winner. And you're like, okay, well, he's going to get paid for sure. And then UC Saros just signed a massive contract and who has been in the finalist conversations before for the Vezina. So again, these are high caliber guys, and Swayman has not been there yet. So you have to consider what players are available that we're going to be ranking him against. So you're looking at something. I'm going to go over a couple that, in my opinion, are ranking really well. Again, Hellebuyck's looking great. Sorokin's looking phenomenal. He just signed this 8-year deal at $8.25 million. Mind you, and then you have Gibson, who signed this back in 2019. Binnington, who signed it in 2019 as well, $6 million. Shesterkin, his contract is up at the end of the year, so he's at 5.6. Merzlikin, not playing well. Tristan's not playing well, or Jari's not playing well. Saros, again, signed a $7.74 million contract for 8 years with Nashville. That's a key, by the way. Just save that one. Demko, I think he is up for a. Let's go with Thatcher Demko, pulling him up. He is played 51 games, by the way. 51 games. Swayman played 44. So Demko's already got more. But mind you, he signed this contract back in 2021 for 5 years at $5 million a piece. Right? So 2021, it was in the middle of COVID. Cap's gone up now, right? You got to consider that. Looking at Linus Ullmark, well, he got traded $5 million. If you go to Linus Ullmark right here, played 40 games, so similar production, and was on a 4-year deal of $5 million. So, okay, so Swayman can make more than 5. If he bridged 5.5, would make more sense. Like 4-year deal at 5.5 to 6, that kind of makes sense right there. I don't think they want to do that with him. I think he's going to be too good, and I don't think they have anyone in the depths. Bruins don't have a great prospect pool. I don't think they have anyone in the depths that they can bring on, and I don't think Korpisalo is going to be it either. Aiden Hill won a Stanley Cup, and that was his only great production. He still made 4.9. Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, just a young goalie, still, similar age, 25, just signed this 4.75. So that is, I think Swayman's better than Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, has better numbers as well. Korpisalo, again, back up. Ottinger, bridge deal, and he made $4 million. So if Swayman wants to bridge, he already did his 1-year bridge. Not 1 year, it was a 1-year bridge deal. But like, I'm assuming they want to sign him long term. And by the way, we're almost done with this. Pulling this up over here. Let me pull this out a little bit. Never mind. Anyways, last one's Georgiev and Philip Gustafson. They're fine. The reason I want to go through these is a lot of these guys are on big contracts, are your number one goalie, and have produced well. They have produced well, or they're Stanley Cup contenders, right? John Gibson maybe is your one that is higher up that isn't a Stanley Cup contender, that also has used to play well, but again, he might signed an 8-year contract a long time ago. So I'm gonna go through a couple of them. Again, we talked about Linus Ullmark, 4 years, $5 million a year. Again, he needs a new contract up this year, so he'll probably make upwards of 8, in my opinion, with Ottawa or on the market, honestly. Ilya Sorokin, 29 years old, looking for his big payday. 56 games last year. That is 12 more games than Swayman, so he has a higher load on him, right? And before that, he was on a $4 million contract, so he took a hit earlier. John Gibson, right? Again, he's not 6.4, but he signed that in 2019. So this is 5 years ago. So you think the value of a guy who's going to be the goalie of the future is going to be higher than 6.4. And I agree, by the way. If you're going to, again, we're going on the assumption that Boston wants him for 8 years. And why wouldn't they? Jeremy Swayman has played well. He is, let's see how old he is. 25 to 33. You can offload him at 33 when he's starting to go down, potentially, right? Again, I think it's huge. Again, 44 games. And looking at his past production with the Boston Bruins when he was on his ELC, 37 games, played well, 2.27 and a .92 save percentage. On 21-22, 41 games played, 2.41, .94. These are great numbers, phenomenal numbers. So you think he's not only has he played well in 1 year, but he's taking up half of production, so he can probably play upwards of 50 games. You have Korpisalo, who can be a serviceable backup, in my opinion. So why wouldn't you sign this guy? Moving on, Thatcher Demko. It was a finalist for the Vezina, and Swayman has not sniffed that at all. And which is okay. He's still young. Demko is 28, mind you. He's going to need a new contract in 2 years. So, but that was a $5 million cap hit in 21, 22, 26, or 21 and 21. So, like, and he played 51 games. Like, he played more games. It was 7 more games, which doesn't feel like a lot, but that's like 7 more games is like 20. It's like 16% more games than when you think about, like, and so that means probably should make 16% less. He kind of does already. So, and then again, you have Igor Shesterkin, monster, won the Vezina as well, making 5-6 steal, by the way, steal. Numbers looking pretty similar to Swayman's, by the way, but with more games, which is important. He was going to be more tired, and he still put up similar production. And then lastly, I think the closest comparable is UC Saros. But you look at the production. 64 games Saros put up, and he didn't play as well this year, but he played 64 games. That means his backups only had to play 16 games or 18 games the whole season. He could just throw anyone in there, right? And still put up a 2.86 and a .906. So he's above league average on save percentage. Like, to me, Saros is their godsend. And honestly, I'm surprised. I mean, we're going to talk about Nashville. Don't you worry. But Saros is, to me, the closest comparable when it comes to what Swayman will be getting. And given that Saros is the closest comparable, and he signed to me, a very good deal for both teams. And he is Saros is 29. I think a reasonable contract for Swayman and an 8-year contract, because you haven't proven to be a starter. You've been proven to be a good 1A. Saros is a bona fide starter. And again, similar to Vasilevsky, similar to a lot of these guys that I mentioned before, I think it makes the most sense to sign Jeremy Swayman. Let's go down here. Let's pick him. Let's sign. Let's look at for an 8-year term. I have him at. I'm gonna do a little higher, the higher end of it. I believe it's between 7.2 and 7.4 for the cap hit. 7.4 million. I think that makes the most sense. Can you tell me today Swayman is as good as Saros? And that he could be. Is he yet? No. And Saros just signed this year, right? He's not like Barry Trotz extended Saros this year at 7.74 million. You can't tell me with confidence that Swayman is better. He doesn't have the time. He has time on his hands, but to me, like, you're taking a higher risk. And I know that they're looking at some of these players like, okay, you need to take a little bit of a haircut. I think for 8 years, they're like, we can invest in you. Now, if I was Swayman, I don't know if I would take probably a bridge at this point, in my opinion, because I think it makes more sense. But I think we're doing what's in best interest of the Boston Bruins. And I think 7.4 makes the most sense. That is a huge raise. Jeremy Swayman was making 3.475. I think if you bridged him, I think you could do he's 25, take him to 29, 4-year deal. You could bridge him at 5.5. Yeah, I believe that. 5.5. If you bridge him, it'd be a 4-year deal because it would take him until he's 29, and you'd bridge him until at 5.5, which is about 5 to 5.5, which is a good pay increase, a good amount of term, and you can kind of figure out what you want to do with him later. Similar to what you guys did with Allmark, right? Allmark was signed. He had to sign a 4-year deal. He's now 31, so he was 27, so a little younger than Swayman. But this makes the most sense. Again, this is taking a long time because I just feel very confident in this that around 7.4 is probably a good number. He might come in around like 7.6, 7.5, but I think 7.4 is reasonable. It's a win-win. It's an 8-year deal. and I think it's good. And mind you, they give some cap space for them. Again, I would be willing to go up to $8 million a year, which is expensive. But I don't think it makes sense because if you went back to Swayman's camp and was like, well, Saros just signed 774, and he's a runner up in Vezina multiple times, and you have not proved that yet. So to me, this just makes the most sense. So I'm okay with this. So I'm actually really happy with this as well. And so we're gonna move on to the roster, and we'll finish this off. Which, by the way, is not gonna be too hard because this roster is pretty well set already. We're going with Pavel Zacha. We have who moved over to the wing now, right? Maybe you move Brad Marchand up to the front. I probably do Brad Marchand up top with Pasternak, Elias Lindholm. But if you want to spread some love out, you might leave Zacha down there. But I think you go Marchand on the top line. You go Pavel Zacha, Charlie Coyle. I like that. Yeah, nice thing is you can move these guys in. You can have him take the one side of the faceoff because he's left-handed, and Charlie Coyle is right-handed, so you take him to the other side. And you have Geeky who can also play center as well. Poitras, who played well, you could move him up, but I think you want to keep him at center. You might even be able to move. Is Charlie Coyle good enough? Yeah, no, I think I like this. I like this center depth. I think this is fun. I think it's good. More Geeky. How well did he play last year? Because now I'm curious. I don't know if he played as. 39 points in 76 games with the Bruins. I mean, that's good. Half point per game. So I think maybe he'll produce a little bit more, maybe, with Pavel Zacha down there. Pavel Zacha to play well. Coyle played surprisingly well as well. Poitras, I wonder what they're going to do with this kid because he's a nice young kid. But the one thing I really like, this is the fun part. This is the fun part of the when you're looking at some of these guys, because I was kind of going through the roster a little bit before. Again, we talk about Patrick Brown. You have these extra guys, Patrick Brown and Vinny Lettieri. Move him over here just for shits and giggles. You look at this bottom six. So the top line is very good, right? I think Elias Lindholm is maybe the weak spot there. Zacha, Coyle, Geeky doesn't excite me production wise, but I think they'll do okay. I mean, the best part about Boston is not your offense. It's your top line, and then your defense is really good, and then your goalie is very good as well. But your bottom is just such a Boston. Your bottom six is such a Boston line. Besides Matthew Poitras, who's like 5'11", Trent Frederick. I just looked at all these guys of Trent Frederick, Max Jones, John Beecher, Mark Kastelic, and Justin Brazeau. No one's smaller than 6'3". And like Justin Brazeau, I think he's like 6'5". I think it was some crazy, 6'5". Like, so all these guys are just like massive, and which is sweet. Like, why not, right? Like, that's what a Boston type of line, just to get a bunch of massive guys. So I like this bottom six. I think it's gonna be suck to play against. But to me, it doesn't have the same a little extra production that you'd like. And I just don't think Lindholm is the guy. But I mean, you're paying him that much, he's going to be your top line center. So I mean, it's just a little bit concerning. So I mean, I think they're gonna have to trade for a guy. I think they maybe even trade for a winger later. You maybe move Morgan Geeky down. Maybe Poitras changes and you send Geeky down onto the third pair or third line. But there's some movement here. I like Poitras a little bit more. I think he played. He's a young kid, right? I know he's a young kid. I think he's 20. So I thought, 20 years old. Put up 15 points in 33 games. Again, he's just adjusting. He's 20, right? He just signed his ELC like last year. So, I mean, he's a young kid. You get him in the top six. He's smaller, so protect him really well. But yeah, there's something there. I mean, again, he put out. He didn't put out for the World Juniors, but he put out okay for what he was doing later in the season. So, again, a big acquisition. You have Zadorov, Coyle. That makes a ton of sense. I probably put Hampus Lindholm up. Yeah, I put Hampus Lindholm up here with Charlie Coyle. You have Brandon Carlo, Zadorov, Lohrei, Peak, like that. There's Waterspoon as well, playing as your seventh. Again, move him in there as you need. But overall, I like the defense a lot. And then you have Swayman. Mind you, if you wanted to, you could probably put Zadorov up top if you wanted to, and then leave Hampus down here. Like you can do it. I mean, this top four is phenomenal. Carlo, Zadorov, McAvoy, your other Lindholm. Like it's phenomenal. Huge fans. Again, you have Swayman. You're paying. Now, mind you, this is a pretty expensive goalie core with 7.4 and $3 million. But I think also I'm pretty sure, yeah, the Senators are retaining $1 million by the way, which is crazy. They traded him and they were able to retain $1 million. Yeah, there's only $4 million right here. So it's amazing that they were able to get the Senators to retain on that as well. So again, I like this. It's pretty easy. It's pretty straightforward. Pretty cut and dry. Again, I'm not super stoked. I think they need to trade for a winger. But again, what are you gonna do? You're not gonna trade your first round picks. You're kind of in like a mode. Like to me, Boston should be worse this year. Like, are they better? I don't know. Like, it's not super impressive. Like, I don't know. Like, and they're not gonna trade around first round picks or anything. It doesn't make sense. They're not like fully gun ho anymore. So again, I don't know what they want to do. So I think they're going to be a middling team. I think they probably finish third or fourth. And I think, honestly, to me, the top four teams are going to be the same as they were last year. It'll be Florida, Toronto, Boston, Tampa. So I'm going to have Toronto and Boston switch spots. I think that Boston didn't get much better. I mean, they picked up a center, which is nice. But again, I don't think Lindholm is your answer. But I guess it's better than Zaka and Coyle, who did well. But let me know what your thoughts are. If you got Boston fans, let me know because I'm not a Boston fan, but I like going through these and I like learning who's playing with who, how they get there, and this is a lot of fun for me so I have a better understanding when I'm going into these. Like, where did he come from? Who is this guy? So getting a better idea of what's happening with everything, and I'm having fun with this. And so I'll be doing all 32 teams. This is my 5th team. So let me know what your thoughts are. Hit like, subscribe, put your favorite emoji down there, and love you. Catch you next one.